Hey guys, I'm Sai and welcome to Ace Podcast Nation. Here at the channel we've got podcasts, interviews and content on all sorts of subjects. Anything from wrestling, football, films, TV, serial killers, mental health, music, conspiracy theories and more. We got our weekly series, which is our flagship show, which is on football, which is the Andy Campbell Championship show, where we discuss the latest news and results from the Sky Bet Championship, plus the biggest stories from the football world, with the former Premier League and Championship striker Andy Campbell providing the expert analysis. We've also got our popular series, Unscripted and Uncensored. We recently dropped two interviews, or one with UFC star Brett Johns, and also one with UFC hot prospect Jack Shaw, fresh off his impressive debut recently, and they are both not to be missed, very enjoyable shows with two lovely guys. This particular show is part of the 10 Days of ACEcast, which is basically I'm producing, creating and releasing 10 podcasts in a row in the run-up to Christmas. There's 10 full shows, at least 45 minutes to 2 hours long, some of them, and every single day is no mean feat. So I'd appreciate it if you guys could follow us on social media, Twitter at ACEcast_nation, or subscribe to the YouTube channel, which is the best way to support us really and help us keep growing, which is youtube.com/AcePodcastNation. And obviously you've got all the audio podcast insights as well. Okay, so that's the plugs. Joining me today is former Manchester United, Cardiff City, Swansea City defender, Mr. Derek Brazil. Welcome, Derek. How are you doing, mate?
Morning, so are you okay?
Yeah, not too bad.
Yeah, haven't I?
Yes, it's a bit of everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I appreciate you finding some time for me. It's hectic time of year as we hurtle towards Christmas. Seems to come around quicker every single year.
That's because you're getting older.
Oh, I know. I'm starting to feel it now as well. It's as my kids are getting older. My oldest boy was 15 the other day as well, so it's like, starting to really feel it. But yeah, it's good. Christmas is changing for us because, like, obviously I got three boys, and when they were little, it's like, it's all about Santa and this sort of stuff. And like my youngest one is on the sort of very brink of still believing. I think he's at a point where he's kind of just believing because he doesn't want to have no presents of Santa sort of thing. So it's but so next year I think it's going to be a big change for us because they'll be all different. But I mean, before we get into like your career and football and stuff generally, I wanted to talk about the work you're doing and the project you've undertaken really, which is helping the homeless in the local area. So just tell us a bit about that, how it got started, what you're doing, etc.
Well, I mean, homelessness it's always been a big bugbear of mine, and I think I've lived in Cardiff now, particularly for 30 odd years, and you kind of walk past people, but it's becoming more and more evident that you could go 100 yards and there'll be 4 or 5 people homeless. And it's always bugged me a little bit, and I've always done little bits for it, but nothing as concentrated as this. And about 2 months ago, I sat down with my girlfriend and I said, why don't we do something different this year, So I got in touch with the Huggard, which is based in Cardiff, the shelter, and a chap called Tony Feasy. So I went down there. I had first-hand knowledge of what was going on in the actual shelter. The work they do is unbelievable, and they get a lot of support from people, but they need more.
Yeah.
So I went to a couple of their meetings, and then decided what can I do? What can I do, and what can I ask people to help out on without pushing people? Because there's so many things now that people get asked to help out on. So we just sat down one night and said, listen, why don't we just give up Christmas Day? Christmas Day to us is a big thing, and surely it is, but to people who are on the streets who probably haven't got any family, their only friends are other homeless people, then let's make it more special for them. So we come up with the idea called In the Box, which is obviously a football type of things. I didn't get in the box much, to be honest, when I was playing. So So we decided to look at what we could give them. So we came upon the shoebox thing, where it's just, and we asked people to, via Facebook, to just donate old gloves, hats, socks, toiletries, stuff like that. And the response has been amazing. Yesterday alone, I went round to 4 or 5 places, and people had done the stuff in the shoeboxes, like dog food as well, which is something you forget.
Yeah, of course.
But they'd put them in the shoebox, they'd wrap them, they'd put messages on them, and there's a lot of people who I've got to thank, because they've given like new stuff as well,
Yeah.
One chap, he gave us 20 pairs of new socks, 20 hats. There's another chap I know, he doesn't want to be mentioned. He gave us like 15 coats, brand new coats.
Wow, geez.
And gilets, hoodies. I mean, the response has been absolutely amazing, and such in a way, probably even more so from my point of view. It was only myself and my girlfriend doing it. We were going to have a Christmas dinner on Christmas Eve with my daughter, who's 9, but now we've got my stepdaughter wants to get involved. She's coming out Christmas Day with her fella, and there's about 4 or 5 other people who are giving up their day as well to come and deliver all this stuff.
Yeah, it's incredible. And look, like in this day and age, all you read about, and if you read the newspapers or you go online on social media and radio, it's just all negative, and it's always, particularly with the elections recently, it's just everything is negative. There's knife crime, there's people getting hurt and attacked, and often what you find is when you put something like this out, or put something like this together, which you're doing, is you see the good, and there's so much good out there, and there's people who want to help, and sometimes it can be as simple as people don't quite know how to help, particularly at Christmas. People, like I just said to you before we started, I often talk to my kids about what can we do to try and help some people, particularly around Christmas when it's cold and it's wet, and what can we do to help them, and they come up with ideas and different things. So you do see that response. People do want to do stuff, and I think sometimes they just don't know how to go about it. And I've seen a lot, particularly this year, I think more than ever, like over the last week, there's a chip shop in Whitchurch in Cardiff, just not far from me, which is opening on Christmas Day, and they're giving free chips and free fish and chips for homeless people to go there.
Cardiff itself is, for me, the front runner in all of this, because after the World Cup that he had in the summer, which is a major success, I've spoke to a lot of friends in Manchester and in Birmingham and places like that, and they mention to me all the time that Cardiff have really pushed it this year. There's so many things that like you said, it's much, the media are getting more involved. You see so many things on Facebook now about, and hopefully, and well, I know some people will probably think it's just for Christmas, but we've got so much stuff that we're not just going to limit it to Christmas Day, because, as I said, we've got so many coats and stuff like that. We're going to try and make this, hopefully once, maybe twice a month from now on.
That'd be amazing.
Going out, because at the end of the day, it's okay going out Christmas Day, and I thank everybody for the donations and coming to help on that day. But this is a big bugbear of mine, that we will continue this, monthly if we can. Because Christmas is the worst time for people, who haven't got anything. And the statistics tell you that most people become homeless after Christmas as well.
Oh, that's good. Is that? I did not realise that. And also, I read somewhere the other week that the kind of the mortality rate in homeless people at Christmas is a lot higher than it is for the rest of the year. Obviously, whether that's where people are obviously feeling even more down about their situation because it's Christmas.
I think if you look at, I think there was a stat the other day that 80 to 85% of homeless people are there through mental health. because of mental health.
Unbelievable. In 2019, coming
Oh,
on 2020, that's a shocking statistic.
Don't get me wrong. There is a lot of people who are on the streets that I've spoke to that are quite happy to live on the streets.
Mm.
But a lot of them have been there through mental health, and everybody goes through. I don't care who you are, rich, poor, famous. Everybody goes through a stage in their life, maybe more than once, where they have mental health issues.
Oh, absolutely.
The word mental health years ago was like, oh, he's a bit of a nutter, him. Leave him.
Mm.
Everybody's got something that is on their mind, whether you've lost a job or whether you've lost a partner or split up from somebody. It doesn't matter how big or small it is. The mental health is massive, and it's good to see that the country as a whole, I think, is looking more into that, you know?
Yeah, and I think one of the things which I find the most frustrating about, like, you know, the amount of homeless people you see, particularly if you go to like big cities like Cardiff or Manchester, London, and you see the amount of homeless people who are on the street, is you just think, God, in 2019, 2020, you know, in this day and age, why is there so much homelessness? Why is there so many people who've got no other choice than to live on the streets? And I just think, like, as a country as a whole, we should be able to do better and to find these people shelter or somewhere to live. But it just seems to be the numbers seem to increase rather than reduce.
Yeah, the thing you said there was we. I mean, the people who really is the people up above, the people, the politicians, the big time people. You know, everyone's trying to do that little bit and all that, but and will help, but it's got to come from above.
Yeah,
you know,
of course it has. Yeah,
that's where it's got to come from. But we all know what they do. They just feather their own nest, don't they?
Well, this is it, isn't it? It's funny you should say that, because I've literally last night was reading like Wales Online, and I've got to say I've been very disappointed with Wales Online recently. But a lot of the stories is about it's always like people who are on benefits or this or that, and trying to demonize those people. Right, and then you've got politicians who are getting paid 100 grand a year, who are also claiming expenses on houses and cars and all this stuff. And you just think all that money could be directed into working with the homeless and providing these people with the care and the shelter which they need. But sometimes the media seem to focus on people, you know, who are struggling or disabled or whatever it may be, and it's kind of frustrating to me.
I've been to. I mean, I'll give you an example. I go to Bulgaria quite a lot, right? And you wouldn't say Bulgaria is a rich country, you know. They're not, but there are no homeless there. You know, when I say not homeless, there is obviously homeless, but not to the scale that it is in Britain.
Yeah.
Now, how can that be? You know, it's you wouldn't see anyone. Maybe if you go somewhere like Spain or something that's probably a little bit more, you know, got more money. Still, it's not as big. Ours is, this country as a whole, it's rife. Now, I know you will get a lot of people saying, which you do, and that's their thing, is homeless, and they'll step over them.
Yeah.
I have friends who've done that. They just won't even look at them and just say, oh, lazy, whatever. But to stop and actually talk to somebody and ask them what their story is, don't get me wrong, they will put a sob story on to try and get money out of you.
Mm.
But if, like I said, don't give him money, give him something to eat or give him some warm clothing or something, you know? It's not gonna. But the country has got its principles, and like you said about these politicians, you see them on the telly, they're falling asleep. And I just think, how can that person keep their job? You do that at work, you get sacked.
Absolutely, yeah, God damn. And like, yeah, you're right. Well, I think there's a lot of things which politicians do, and you know, if you did that in your 9 to 5 job or whatever, you'd be out the door in seconds.
Ridiculous.
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, when you look at it, like you look America and Britain, the biggest or the richest countries in the Western world, probably in the world as a whole, outside maybe like your Chinas and stuff, is they've got probably the highest rate of homelessness in the world between the two of them. I know in America it's a lot of, you know, former veterans and there's a lot of people like yourself who are trying to support and fix that. But why? It shouldn't be that way, should it? In countries like America and Britain, it should be. There's enough money within the systems to do something and do more, and it's frustrating.
I think with America and I think Britain as well, there's a scale. We're all on a scale, in terms of what you have, how much you earn. There you got all the top bracket, and then it just filters itself all the way down.
Yeah.
There is a class system in America and here. So unfortunately, that's just the way it is, and it's been like that for a long time. And how that changes, I don't know. No idea how that changes. You look at other countries, like I said, Bulgaria. There's a difference in Bulgaria. If you've got money, and it doesn't need a lot of money in Bulgaria. You've either got it or you haven't.
Mm.
But when you haven't got it, you're not homeless. You still live comfortably. Whereas Britain and America, I think there's a sliding scale right from the top down to the bottom.
And the people at the bottom are the ones who kind of get pushed to the side and stepped over and left to struggle.
And what happens then? They go on top themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, it's there you are.
So it's interesting because you just reminded me of something where you said that like people who like you've seen people stepping over like homeless people and stuff. I saw there's a guy who stands outside my local shop who's selling the Big Issue, and I often have a chat with him because he's really polite. He'll say good morning. He'll ask you how you are and stuff. So I like to chat him, but it always bugs me the amount of people who will like turn away or like just completely blank him, because this guy he's not trying to force you to buy the Big Issue. He's not going for the big sell. He's literally just saying good morning, good afternoon, how are you, how's your day. He's just trying to like strike up a conversation. Yes, he wants you to buy the Big Issue, but if you just say, oh yeah, I'm fine, thanks, how are you, no thanks, I don't want to buy it, or I might buy it another time, or whatever it may be, he doesn't like get really offended, and it upsets me. And there was this one guy who said he started shouting at the Big Issue seller. He was like, I don't want to buy the Big Issue, go and get a proper job. And he started really getting into it, and he was like, mate, just come on, like, can we not do better as people? That these are human beings who are, and particularly with the Big Issue sellers, they're trying to get back into work, or they're trying to do something to like improve themselves. And this guy, he was saying, or I don't want to give you money because you're going to spend it on drink and drugs and this, and it's like, talk about lumping all these people into one bracket. It was really eye-opening to see the reaction. And all this guy had done is said good morning, basically. It's depressing.
I think there's a long way to go to solving it, to be honest.
Yeah, and hopefully like people like yourself with this project, and obviously if you can get it to continue throughout the year, is going to help people. Like I think of the homeless people who haven't got warm clothes, and then you've got like those 15 coats off that guy. That's going to really help someone who's freezing cold, and got nothing. And not just that, it's gonna perk them up when you turn up and you're like, look, I've got a coat for you, and I've got some toiletries, I've got some dog food for your dog. That's going to give them a lift. It's not going to completely change their situation, but it's gonna make them feel better than what they were. But yeah, we just need to do better, I think, as a people, as a human race. I think is the ultimate thing, isn't it? Obviously you're giving up like your Christmas Day, which that in itself, like, we often forget, don't we, that there's people when you're sat around with your family on Christmas Day, and you're full of food and drink, and you could barely move. You have a nap because you've eaten so much, and then you forget that there's people who are going to be on the street or in a shelter, or not enjoying that level of comfort.
I think one of the reasons we said Christmas Day as well is that when we do go out and speak to these people and give them the boxes that people have generously given, is that they feel, they feel better about themselves that we've decided to come out on Christmas Day for 5-6 hours, It's for us, I mean, to me, it'll be just another day, and my partner and our friends be another day that, yes, you do feel good about it and you want to do more, but it's more the fact that we could come across somebody in an alleyway and they see us coming towards them, and then we say, look, here's a nice coat for you. Do these trainers fit you? Here's a glove, hats, here's some, food, some sweets, box of chocolates, blah, blah, blah. It's the fact that they feel, oh, you've all come out on Christmas Day, thank you. So they feel that they're someone's actually thinking about them on that day, Because I'm sure people I know do it probably every weekend of the year. But just the fact that hopefully they'll think, oh, you've actually given up your time on Christmas Day to come and see us. It might make them feel better as a person and possibly help them get off the streets, by feeling better about themselves.
Yeah, and they feel hopefully like they do matter. Like I can imagine that if you get people just ignoring you and blanking you and stepping over you constantly, that's going to just make you feel worse and worse, as well as your situation, because you're just going to feel like you just, no one cares, no one matters.
How many times have you been blanked, ignored, or someone's walked past you or who you know?
Yeah. And
you feel a bit crap, don't you? And you just think, what the? Imagine being on the streets and like that. we can, if you get blanked by someone or ignored or something, you can just go and stick the telly on, or you can
take your mind off it.
With your mates, yeah. But it must be soul destroying, really.
Yeah, I commend you, and like I say, just to kind of finish off on that positive note with this part of the show, where if people want to donate to anything now, obviously it's pretty local, to Cardiff and the surrounding areas. Where can they go to get in contact with you to donate anything?
Probably there's probably three. One, to contact me on Facebook.
Okay.
I'm on there as Derek Michael Brazil, or my email address, probably the same. The Oyster Catcher pub in Penarth. It's hard, really. I mean, it's difficult, but if people want to catch me on Derek Brazil 5 at yahoo.co.uk, that's probably the.
What I'll do is I'll put a link in the bottom of the show as well, so that people can just click it then if they want to donate. Obviously, we're getting close to Christmas now as well. But so just to switch gears a little bit, we'll talk a little bit about your career and some football. Obviously, you started your career in Ireland. So how old were you when you sort of first signed for a club?
Well, initially, up until the age of 10, I played Gaelic football.
Oh, right, okay.
Massive now in Dublin. It always was big. So I played that, started that about 10 years of age, which was quite late, really. And I played that till I was 13. And my dad was an ex-footballer. He played in League of Ireland, and he'd gone to Blackburn Rovers for a trial for a month. Got homesick, came back, had me. But then at the age of 14, he said to me, why don't you try football? So I said, okay. So I signed for a team called Belvedere, which is his old team, as a striker. I scored 29 goals in my first season.
Oof.
I know. But I didn't enjoy it. And that's Irish for you. I wanted to play centre-half. I was more comfortable with the game in front of me than, seeing the whole picture than my back to goal. So they weren't happy about it, Belvedere. So I went and joined my local club, Rivermount Boys, under 14s then, and played centre half. And that year we beat my old team in the final. So that was pretty good. And then I got noticed from the 15 to play for Ireland on the 15 schoolboys. And then at the age of 17, again, I played for Ireland. And I was one of the few players who was still playing in Ireland that weren't attached to a club in England.
All right, great.
So I went to West Ham for a month on loan. A month trial. I trained with the first team there, and the likes of Billy Bonds, Trevor Brookin.
Wow.
Frank McAvenny. It was amazing. But Paul Ince was there. But John Lyle, the manager, said to me after a month, he said, "That's not good enough, mate." He said, "You need to go back to Dublin and get a job." So I just went, right, fine. Okay, I went back to work. That was in December 1985. And then I continued to play for Ireland. And then in March, Man City, Chelsea, and Man United had seen me play for Ireland, and they wanted me to sign for them. So I said, okay. So I'll come over, took my family over, we went round, and in the end I signed for Man United at the age of 17, which is, I tell a lot of kids I do now. I mean, I only started playing at 13 years of age. At the age of 17, I signed for United on a 3-year contract. So that
not a big time frame, is it? And
No.
I think in this day and age, funny enough, because like my youngest has been kind of in the system, and my oldest is same has been in this sort of systems with clubs and Cardiff and Tafswell and stuff. It's like they feel, particularly the younger one, when he first played for the Cardiff Development Centre, sorry, the older one, he's a goalkeeper, and he felt under so much pressure because he was like 9 playing for the development centre, not even like the full academy, and he was playing this game and he was so nervous that he wasn't playing like he played to get there, because he felt like if he had a bad game or he made a mistake, I can never be a professional footballer now. But it's like, you're 9. And
it's getting ridiculously hard now, because there's so many clubs and so many players now that clubs, if they take 1,000 kids in, if they get 3 of them, they're happy. Yeah. It is a meat market. My situation was slightly different because I was in Ireland and the scouts were over there, and it's a smaller country in terms of the whole of Britain. So, I mean, I teach kids now football between the ages of 5 and 14, and you see some of them are really talented. But if you send them for a trial somewhere and it doesn't work out, they come back to their club. You know, they're probably the best player of their club. They probably come back and they probably think, well, that's it. That's my chance over.
Yeah.
The players who are playing with him think, well, he's the best player in the team. What chance have we got? It has such a knock-on effect. It's massive, and I mean, it's a bit too much now. And I think money in football as well has probably ruined it all.
Yeah, I agree. So you signed for United.
Yeah.
Like, how did that kind of come about? Because the man with the Hollywood smile told me there's a bit of a funny story to your signing with United.
I played. Ron Atkinson was a manager, and my dad was with me. Obviously, he was, and Ron said, "Look, we want to sign you. There's no problem, but can you just join in this game today against the first team?" Now, the first team in them days was the likes of Norman Whiteside, Brian Robson, Frank Stapleton. So I played for the reserves, and Frank Stapleton, who was a hero of mine, you know, obviously being Irish as well, he was an Irish legend, scored a hat-trick against me. Mm-hmm. I thought, well, I think that's blown my chances. So I went upstairs. So I'm sat with my dad, and Ron said, "Look, we want to sign you definitely. 3.5-year contract." And I was sitting there, and I went, and Ron looked at me, he said, "What's the matter?" I said, "Well, Frank scored a hat-trick against me." He said, "Well, he could have scored 9. He said, "Did you forget the block tackles and the way you..." I said, okay, clearing off the line. I said, okay. So Ron, though, he's a massive character. Ron, he had a sunbed in one of the rooms. You could see the light from underneath the thing. I was thinking, what the hell is that? So he said, right, let's talk figures now. So my dad, Mick went, right. So they agreed on I think it was something like 250 quid first year, 275 a week second year, 325 third year, which back in '86 was a lot of money. Yeah. I think the likes of Brian Robson were only on $3,000 a week. You know, captain of England. That was the highest. So Ron and my dad said, okay, we're signing on for you now. So my dad says, well, I know what my son's worth. You know, proper Irishman. So Ron says, well, okay, what do you want to do? So my dad ripped up a piece of paper. So he slid it across to Ron. He said, you write down there how much you're going to give my son over 3 years. And I'll write down on my piece of paper what I think. And we'll swap and see what we are. So Ron went, happy days. He's like, all the jewelry hanging out of him. Happy days.
Mm-hmm.
So my dad wrote, Ron wrote, they exchanged. So I'm sitting there thinking, what the hell's going on here? So Ron picked his up, and I managed to look at my dad's one that Ron had done, and Ron had written down $5,000. Now, I had no idea what my dad had written down. So Ron looked at his and he went, it's a deal, Mick. So they stood up, shook hands, and I was like, what's my dad written?
What just happened?
What? So they were looking out the window now, and I kind of leaned over to see what my dad written. And I looked at it and I thought, my dad hadn't written any figure. All he'd written down was double it. So whatever Ron had written, he'd put double it. And Ron had gone, deal. So we went outside. I said to my dad, I said, Dad, you had some balls doing that, didn't you? He said, I know. I said, what's the matter? I said, look, you're happy with something for United? He went, yeah. He said, I should have put triple it. But I couldn't spell triple. Oh my God. I thought, oh. So that's how I kind of started. But Ron got the sack about 6 months later.
Oh.
And that's when Alex Ferguson came in.
So
that was a big system.
That's a lot of money in 1986 for a 17, 18-year-old coming over from Ireland. It's a lot of money, isn't it? So they obviously Ron Atkinson obviously fancied you as a player to give that money for a youngster and bring you over from Ireland and stuff. So what was it like that kind of stuff once you've signed and you go there for the first time? Because even back then it was a big club. It wasn't quite the behemoth it is now, but I mean it was still one of the biggest clubs around.
I think it was. I think Liverpool were the dominant force in that era. It was weird, really, because when I did start playing football at 13 years of age, my only dream was to go and play in England. That was it. I mean, people would say to me, what are you going to do when you leave school and all that? I said, I'm going to play football. Don't get me wrong, you need a little bit of luck. I mean, and it all worked out quite well. Some people say I probably should have signed for Chelsea at the time. Man City were bringing all their youngsters through. But you do have some regrets about signing for them. But then again, the education that I had there in the 6 years I was there, and then to train with the players, like I said, the likes of Whiteside and Brian Robson, Paul McGrath, Frank Stapleton, and Peter Schmeichel, amazing players. And I was in digs with like about 5 other lads. But it is one of them. You soon find your feet, 17, 18, find your feet. You find your local pubs that you can go and have your first drink in. Because I didn't have a drink until I was 17.
Yeah.
My first proper drink was when I went over to Manchester. And you get a group of boys there. They're all Scottish, Welsh, Irish. And you find your local pub. But the one thing we didn't know was Fergie knew all the bar managers.
Yeah.
So
exactly
what
you're
I pull you in and go, you were in the Griffin last Tuesday or something. No training on a Wednesday. You were in the Griffin last Tuesday. And you're sitting there thinking, and he's looking at you waiting for an answer, and you go, he said, in fact, I'll give you the time. It was between 7 and 11 o'clock. And this is what you were drinking. The man was right on it, to be honest. And that was with everybody. He was obviously a lot harder on the likes of Whiteside and McGrath, because they were like lunatics.
Big drinkers.
Yeah.
I mean, Paul McGrath and Whiteside were legendary, weren't they? They're drinking and stuff. Like, I can't remember, it was one of the footballers I interviewed, actually. They said, like, Paul McGrath, he could go out all night on a Friday night drinking, come in the early hours, and then he'd turn up for a match and play out of his skin as if he had been, teetotal and
player of all time. I mean, I'm lucky enough to say my favourite player to watch and to play with, because, and I think, I mean, Paul and Norman got a lot of stick about that, but the drinking culture was just the way it was in them days. Not just at Man United, but Liverpool, Man City, everywhere. And it was more like a bonding thing then, where there's no training tomorrow, so all the boys would go out for an all-dayer. So it was, hello?
Yeah, you're still there. You just camera's gone off or something.
I think is it my battery or yours?
No, it's not mine.
So yeah, so I think it was Paul it was amazing. Sometimes you wouldn't train all week. You'd just be on the bike. And then he'd go and play on a weekend for the first team. You think, man, he hasn't even trained all week. Best player in the
Yeah.
And a lovely guy as well. Absolutely lovely. Lovely fella when he was sober, and when he was drunk, he was even nicer. That's the thing. It's like great player.
What sort of players were in that, like the youth team or the reserve side and the team which you were training with when you first got there?
Well, when I was there, the ones we were called like Fergie's fledglings, the ones he gave us all our debuts to. There was myself, Russell Beardsmore, Daniel Graham, Lee Martin, Gary Walsh, and then you had the likes of Giggsy was just underneath us.
Yeah,
but he would often play in our reserve team games together. Beckham was slightly younger, and the class of '92 were like slightly younger as well. But you could see that group of players, the Nevilles, the Butt, Giggsy, that you could see they were all coming through. And I think that was one of the reasons why quite a few of us decided to kind of go when we were given the chance.
Yeah.
Because to get bypassed by them, when you're young, you kind of don't realise how good they're going to be. But you can see they're going to get in before you, So
you left United. Obviously, you spent some time on loan at Oldham and Swansea, and then you left. Was it August '92, and joined Cardiff for 85 grand. God, times have changed, haven't they?
Well, that 85 grand, it's actually more than that. It's 85 grand plus another 20 when I made 100 appearances, which when I bumped into Fergie in 2000 at Ninian Park when they were playing Millwall in the FA Cup at Millennium.
Oh, yeah.
I said, how are you doing? I said, all right, boss. Yeah, keep calling boss. He said this, I won't use his words, but he was swearing that this club owes us money for you still. I said, pardon? He said they owe us effing 20 grand. But the club at the time had gone through so many people trying to take over the club. So whether the club still owe United 20 grand for me, I don't know. Presumably.
So how did the move to Cardiff come about?
Well, I'd gone to Swansea probably a year and a half before, and Frank Burrows was the manager. I was there for 3 months, and United wanted something like 150 grand or something, and Swansea couldn't afford it, so I had to go back. So I went back. Fergie offered me another 2-year contract, and it was then that Eddie May had seen me play for Swansea, so he asked. Funny enough, Fergie said to me, "Can you go on loan to Wrexham?" I said, "No, don't want to." And then he said, "We'll go to Cardiff then." I said, "Okay." So I came down on the train for a month's loan. Played a couple of games, and Eddie said to me, "Look, we'd like to sign you full time now." So he got in touch with Fergie. Fergie got back to him, and then before my loan period was up, I'd signed a 2-3-year contract. So yeah, I was delighted, to be honest. I was surprised at how big the club was even then, and the fans, and the way that, I mean, Ninian Park to me, I know the stadium now is amazing, but Ninian Park to me was a fantastic stadium, especially when it was full as well. It was right on top of you, proper stadium.
Proper football stadium.
Yeah, proper.
Yeah, I miss Ninian Park. I got to be honest. It's So, were you ever kind of in two minds whether to leave United, or were you kind of ready to go and get some first team football?
I think I was ready because I was 23 years of age. I played twice for the first team. I was captain of the reserves, but I kind of knew in my head. I was looking at it thinking, well, you got Bruce and Pallister there, and you got the young lads coming through as well. It was time for me to go. 23 is quite old, even then. Plus, I was playing for Ireland under 23s, and I was in the B international team.
Yeah.
With ambitions to play for the senior team. And I thought, well, I'm not going to do that with my reserve team, reserve games. So going to Cardiff was probably the best move for me as well, in terms of playing regularly. I'd had the taste of it, playing at Swansea. But it felt the right move as soon as I got there. After a couple of games, I thought, this feels good here, I feel comfortable. Eddie was a fantastic manager straight away. I hit off with him. And it was just a case of like, yeah, I like it here. And it turned out to be a great idea, because my first season here, we won the league and the Welsh Cup and qualified for Europe, which was amazing.
Yeah, you spent, was it about 4 years at City?
Yeah.
Which is, it's a good, over 100 appearances. And like you say, that first season was particularly successful. Did you, who would you say was the best player that you played with at Cardiff?
I mean, I can only look at the first season. I mean, my second season was all right. My third and fourth season were blighted by injuries and blighted by woeful managers. We had managers there who, the likes of Phil Neal, even Terry Orris.
They didn't go well.
They were doing it for the job. It wasn't. They didn't have a feel for the club, And we had people trying to run the club, and it was a bit of a shambles. But if I had to say best players, Robbie James would have to be up there.
Quality. Robbie
James was a great man. He was great in pre-season, because me and him are normally at the back anyway in the running. But I think he was about 40 when I played with him. What a football brain! So he was like 2 steps ahead of everyone else. Wasn't quick, but he read the game so well. And I'd probably have to say the other one would be probably Blakey, for his kind of his talent for a start, but his attitude towards his talent was always impressed me. It was like he was all for the players, but when we played against teams and they tried to kick him and all that, they're kicking the wrong person there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was like, right, that was the worst thing you could do to Blakey. So I think those two probably would be my best two. But
that's a fair shout, I think, isn't it? I mean, like Robbie James, like you say, we was 40 and he was still reading the game better than most players around. He was tremendous, but he's one of my favourites when I was a nipper. And like I say, Blakey was just one of those special players who was able to pull something out of nothing.
Yeah.
Which he did so much. And funny enough, it's funny you should mention some of the managers that you played under, because I've got on my sort of list of stuff to talk about is the managers, because you had a few dodgy ones, to be fair. So after that sort of 4-year period, you left Cardiff. Were you disappointed to leave that when you did, or was it kind of again like the right time?
I remember the day I left, to be honest. Phil Neal and Kenny Hibbett were joint managers, and we were all getting called in. It was like the last day of the season or something, and there was a few young lads, and we arranged to meet in the Admiral Napier, right? So we all knew our times that we were going to meet. So Lee Jarman was in before me, Simon Howarth, and a couple of others were in there. So I went in with the intention of I'd been injured for about 5 weeks, and the two of them barely spoke a word to me in that time. So I kind of knew my contract was up. So I said to Lee Jarman, I'll see you in the Admiral Napier about 2:15. I'm not going to be long. I was in at 2:00 or something. So I went in, and Kenny Hibbett sat there, and he said nothing. Phil Neal. He turned around and he said, listen, Derek, you've been a great servant for the club. Hasn't been a great season for you. So, we've been chatting, and I knew what was coming. And I said, I got to stop you there. I said, I've made my mind up. I'm leaving. And he sat back and went, I said, look, no. I said, even if you offer me a 5-year contract, he said, I'm not staying at this club. I said, I've had enough. And to be honest, while I'm at it, I said, I think you two are the wrong people for the job. And their faces were looking at me as if to say, and Phil Neal said, there's no need to be like that. I said, well, look, I said, I'm just saying, and around the time that advert was out, And I said, listen, like the Murphys, I'm not bitter. And he looked at me as if to say, hell, you on about? And he picked up the phone, Phil Neal, and he said, listen, we weren't going to offer you a contract anyway. I said, like I said to you, I wouldn't have accepted it. And he looked at me and he was like, he said, it's only plastic, this phone, but give me a ring if you ever need advice. I said, no problem. Listen, anyway. And I looked at my watch and it was about 2:20 now. I said, listen, I got an appointment somewhere. I need to go. I said, all the best. Take care. And I went outside the door and I was shaking. And I went out the main door then into the car park. And I had tears in my eyes then because I knew that even though I didn't want to be there with them, I knew that the whole 4 years had just gone in that time.
Yeah.
Be in tears. And I walked to the Admiral Napier and I went in and had a few points with the boys and told them what happened. And they were like laughing their heads off. And I thought I'd never go back there, to be honest. But I ended up going back there in that was in 97. I ended up going back there in 99 as a football and community officer.
Yeah.
They by then.
Yeah. They didn't last too long,
No.
I think.
No.
So where did you go from there? You went to Newport, didn't you?
I went to Newport.
Stayed in Wales, stayed in the area.
Yeah, I mean, I had chances to go to China, back to Ireland. I actually did go back to Ireland for about 10 days to see what the crack was like over there. But I had a call from Newport, and they offered me a dual thing. Obviously, it was part-time. So to be their community officer, to start coaching and play for the team. So I accepted that, did that on a 2-year deal. Did that for 2 years. And then and it's great really, because in 1997, I was 27 when I retired.
Yeah.
From professional, which is only 10 years from actually signing United. 10 years later, 27 is quite young to retire. And to take up coaching, which I did in 97, which is what's that, 30 years ago, was it? 30 years ago? Just
about now.
Done that, so 25 years. If I hadn't took that coaching role, I probably wouldn't be doing what I do now, which is coaching in schools. But I've been doing the same thing, obviously with different clubs, and then I set my own business up. So that was probably the best thing for that, really. I mean, I had a great time at Newport. Brilliant club, brilliant people running the club. But what sticks in my mind, which is key, is is taking that coaching role in the schools, because it's what I do now, all those years later.
Yeah, it's funny how things turn out, isn't it? Because, like, you could have gone back to Ireland, or you could have gone to China or somewhere else, not taken that, because you could have thought, well, I'm 27, I've still got a few years left.
I knew my body was only ready for part-time football training.
Yeah, you'd had a few injuries, haven't you, towards the end of the spell with Cardiff and stuff. So you had to dabble in managerial roles as well.
I managed Newport for one game. Me and Ray John did it, and we beat Crawley 3-1 away. It was brilliant. And I got a little taste for it then. I thought, okay. I then left Newport, went to Cardiff with George Wood, playing won the Welsh Cup final with them. Then I went to Haverfordwest as a player. Went down there for a few years. Loved it. It was great. Again, lovely people. And then a few years later, they asked me to become manager. And I was manager there for 4 years in the Premier League, which was brilliant. I loved it. Like I say, great people, some great players there. And then I got the bullet, as you do, because results. In fact, I remember, and I still tell them now, my last game was Neath away, and Lee Trundle scored a hat-trick, and he was on fire. And you're going back now about, 10 years, and he's still doing it now, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he still plays Welsh League football, doesn't he?
Well, I think he single-handedly beat Carmarthen last week. But Ammanford knocked him out of the Welsh Cup.
Yeah, he's. I gotta say, I pride myself when we do the Andy Campbell show. I pride myself on the fact that we're fair to everyone, even Swansea and Leeds. And Lee Trundle is a very, very talented footballer.
Yeah, he could. Do you know what? He should have played for Cardiff. And I tell you why. I was playing for Haverfordwest at the time, and I came back. We played Real, and I was playing centre half, and this kid scored a hat-trick against me. right? Lee Trundle. So I found out his name. I went back and I said to Phil Neal, I said, there's a lad here. I've just seen him on the weekend, plays for Real. I'll tell you what, better than what you've got here. Better than what we got. What's his name? Lee Trundle. Oh, we'll look into it. 3 weeks later, he signed for Wrexham for 50 grand. No, they didn't. If they did anything about him, so he could have ended up being a Cardiff City hero.
Well, the thing is,
thing could have changed easily.
The thing
but
is, with
everyone now at Cardiff.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? But like, the thing is with like the Welsh League, particularly for Cardiff, Swansea, Wrexham, is it's worth a punt on some of these Welsh League players, because there's some decent players in the Welsh League. You get them for next to nothing. You know, they don't work out. They don't work out. But I often think they miss a trick, even now, by not, just having a gamble here and there on some of the more talented footballers in the Welsh League, the younger ones, because you just never know. Jamie Vardy was playing non-league football less than 10 years ago, and he's England striker now, and he's banging, scoring goals for fun.
Managers are under pressure that they think if they do that, then the fans will think, well, you're not thinking big there.
Yeah, but equally, if you could, Cardiff fans love that kind of either homegrown player or those Welsh players coming through the squads, don't they? Whether they've come from the Welsh League or the academy system.
Yeah.
But I think it becomes a problem if, like, that's the only player you sign in the transfer window, isn't it? If you sign like a Welsh League striker for 20 grand, then that's it.
You've got to balance it out, haven't you?
But I do think they miss a trick, and I think it's definitely worth a gamble. So during your football career and your managerial career and your life within professional football, semi-professional football, who is the biggest knobhead you've ever met or come across? It's my favourite question, because every footballer has a different answer. Well, they've always got a funny story to go with it. So
biggest knobhead in football. Well, I've got more than one. See.
Yeah, that's all right. We've got time.
You know what I mean? I mean, Phil Neal is one of them. Now, and I tell you,
terrible manager.
I tell that story with that. And I tell you what the story came into. All right, this is what really turned me off him. One, he was a Liverpool player anyway. Eddie got the sack, so we're all in the changing rooms now. And Rick Wright comes in. He said, "We got a new manager." So he steps in, and immediately I looked at him. I thought, "Wow, it's Phil Neal."
Yeah.
That they've gone big there. I don't know what club he was at the time, but they've gone with someone with a lot of pedigree. Even though I'm anti-Liverpool, a lot of pedigree. Here we go. He stepped in. He went, "Okay, boys." He said, "I'm not going to stand here in front of you and go on about my 12 championship medals, my 100 caps for England, my 2 European Cup things, my 2 Super Cups." And he went on like this. I'm thinking,
straight away, you've got to be thinking, what a dickhead.
What a dick, right? I turned the dick there, and I went. So I thought, okay, it's difficult to announce yourself to somebody, a squad of players you don't know. So we went to the training ground. But the training ground, and we're setting up like a practice now. And he's on the sideline now. So I get the ball, pass it into midfield to a lad called Chris Ingram. Don't know if you know Chris.
Yeah, I know.
Great lad, Chris, right? Ingy, we call him. So passed it into him. He's nothing on, so he passes it sideways. Phil Neal goes, blows his whistle. Stop. Give me the ball back. So he goes to Ingy. He goes, "What's your name, son?" And Ingy goes, Valley Boy. He went, "Ingy." And he goes, "Pardon?" He goes, "Ingy." He went, "Ingy." He said, what's your real name? He said, "Chris Ingram." He said, "Right." He said, "We used to have a lad called Souness." I thought, oh my God. Please, no. I'm thinking, so he gives me the ball. He goes, "Right." He said, "Pass me what's your name?" I said, "Derek." So I passed it to him. He said, "Right, this is what you need to do, Ingy. Turn on it and chip it in." And he says to the striker, which was Steve Flack at the time, right? He goes, "What's your name, son? Big lad, what's your name?" And he goes, "Flacky." And he goes, "What? Flacky?" And he's looking at me. I said, "Flacky." All right. He said, "Right." So I gave him the ball, and he tried to chip it into Flacky. Couldn't get it past the first midfielder. "Give me the ball again. Give me it again." So I'm thinking, right. So he's trying this 3 times now. Couldn't do it. So he's blaming me now for the pass into him. So he then chips it in on the fourth attempt to Flacky. And it's a nice, easy ball. It bounces off Flacky's shin and goes about 12 yards away. What the hell's going on? So he goes, that's how we do it. Okay. So I got the ball. He says, start. So I gave the ball into Ingy. Ingy gets it, passes it sideways. Goes nuts on the sideline now. And Ingy just gives me a wink then. He's done it on purpose, Ingy.
Yeah.
He's done it on purpose. And I thought, what an absolute tool. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he didn't announce himself. I didn't drop a name straight away. You think, do me a favour.
Yeah.
Probably the other one, I don't know how I can say this because he's Welsh.
Crack on.
Mark Hazelwood.
Yeah, I can see that.
What a sneaky man. What a sneaky man. He was all for himself, you know. When Eddie was there and he was conniving behind his back to try and get Eddie out of a job. And yeah, you know, I played alongside Mark Hazelwood. And I tell you what, I've got the coaching sessions with him. Probably one of the best coaches I've ever seen in terms of his knowledge of the game. But as a bloke, always up for himself, always trying to do people our stuff, you know, snaky eyes and all that. But
yeah,
a bit of a knob. You've got me going now because I've got a list of people, but I can't go on anymore. I can't say
that's right. I'm surprised by that though, simply because Eddie May was so popular with fans and with players and.
Yeah, but Hazel wanted him out so he could get his mate Terry Orr the job.
No, that went well.
Yeah. I didn't mind Terry, to be honest, because
no, I didn't.
He was all right, Terry, but he just wasn't the right manager for the club again, you know.
Yeah, he did all right for he did all right for Wales. He just didn't. He never felt right when he was Cardiff manager. He just didn't quite click, and you're gonna get that, you know. At all clubs, sometimes it just don't work. So, do you watch much football these days?
It's weird actually because I used to go through a lot of watching football, but I found myself. Obviously I work at Cardiff City, so I watch Cardiff City, and when they're away, I watch them on my phone, and I watch Man United on my phone. But it's weird when I watch Man United and Cardiff because you feel like you're playing in the game.
Yeah. And
if the result goes against you, you can ask my missus.
Ruins the weekend.
It just, whether it's Man City or Man United, and if both of them lose, I'm like, I feel, it's weird because I like watching it, but when it's not going well, I think, what am I watching this for? And I feel like it's weird to explain. When the games are over and say they both lost, I feel like I'm sitting in the changing room.
Yeah.
With that emotion still of, and it's hard going to watch games as well because of the coaching side of it. If you're watching a game, the ball's up. If we're attacking, I do this with Cardiff all the time. If we're attacking, I might say the ball's up there. I'm looking at our back three or back two, seeing what they're doing.
Yeah.
See where they go.
Even watching.
I'm not even. Sometimes I'm not even watching what's happening. I'm actually watching to see what, say, Morrison's doing, or is he in the right position? Is the fullback back? So it's really weird, and it kind of ruins the game for me a little bit. Yeah. Unless it's 4-0 up, which
it's all right then.
Hasn't happened for a while, has it?
No, it has not. So with United, do you think Solskjaer's going to last the season?
I didn't think. Up until about 4 or 5 games ago, I didn't think so. I haven't beaten Spurs, haven't beaten Arsenal, haven't beaten Spurs, haven't beaten City. I think they will, because you can see a progression there of what he's trying to do with the young players. The problem with United is their experienced players are all on the bench.
Yeah, I mean,
they need that balance of I think Maguire's a good signing. I think they'll keep Solskjaer to the end of the season. If he wins a cup and gets in the top 4, yeah. If he doesn't win a cup and they don't get in the top 4, I don't know. A lot will depend how the fans are, and I think the fans at the moment are back on his side.
Yeah, and I think with the Spurs game particularly, I think that was the one where if they'd lost that heavily against Mourinho, that was going to be the one which could get people to turn, because no one expected them to beat Man City. So it's kind of like this derby game. It's just one of those games. If they'd lost that, you could see maybe that wouldn't result in the fans turning or him getting the sack. But I think the Spurs game, and they were really good in both. The problem is they don't seem to be able to. They like on the counter-attacking football, they're incredible. They're so good at the moment. But the problem they have is when they can't play that counter-attacking counter-attacking football, when they come up against, like a Sheffield United or the sort of perceived lesser teams, they struggle a bit with creativity.
They've got it spot on, because if you look at their form, right, they were 10 minutes away from beating Liverpool. They got a draw against them. They've beaten Chelsea. They've beaten Leicester. They've beaten Tottenham. They've beaten Man City. But they can't. And all those teams that I've mentioned will come at you. They will go for you. And they will leave that open to your counter-attacking skills that they have. They've lost against Palace. They can't beat the likes of Watford, Sheffield United. It's because those teams are sitting, okay, sit back, now try and break us down. And that's where they lack. That's where they lack somebody from midfield to try and break teams down. They haven't got that type of magician in there to actually do that. Tabala would have been a decent signing if they'd got him. I mean, he looks a quality player to him.
Yeah, I think they need someone who can play that killer pass or like do something a bit special from deep. And I think they hoped Pogba was going to be that.
I've lost patience with him.
Yeah, the problem is that he seems like he's for himself more than I think. That people would be fine with his social media and the way he is, because a lot of modern footballers are like that. But I think the problem is that too often he's inconsistent on the pitch. You can have one game where you think, finally, he's arrived. This is what we paid the money for. They paid the money for. This is what he's about. And then the next game, he'll do absolutely nothing. And you just think, oh.
Well, I think United, they are crying out for a player like Pogba.
But somebody who can do it
but I don't think
9 games out of 10.
I've been bigging him up for a couple of years now, and I've had so much stick off my mates in the pub saying he's rubbish and all that. And he'll turn her on, and next minute, you just think he's a waste of space. And I think with McTominay in there, even Fred now, I mean, he used to get a lot of stick, Fred, but Fred's had a run of 12 games or something? And my mates who are Man United fans who go to the games said he's been excellent. Maybe he hasn't got that shadow. I've been told, whether it's true or not, that I don't think Pogba will play for United again.
No, I wouldn't be surprised.
I think he'll be sold in January.
Well, when I spoke to I'm not sure if you know him, Phil Brown, he's like an Irish football journalist, but he lives in the States, and I've had him on a couple of times, and he was told by someone within Pogba's kind of management team when he signed that he was there for 2 years and then he was going to Madrid. That was always the plan, and then he's ended up staying longer for whatever reason because they wouldn't sell him or they overpriced him or whatever. So I'd be amazed if he doesn't go this year. I think he'll go in January. I do.
I think they should get rid of him in January. I mean, he's been off. Okay, he's had an ankle injury. Then he's been out doing basketball. Then he went to his brother's wedding, which is fine. Then he's come back and now he's ill.
But what will turn the fans, I think, potentially on Solskjaer is if they sell him for 100 million, that will turn the fans, because I think they just see that as the money will just be pocketed by the Glazers. And I think that's got the potential to be a problem. Whereas if they sell him for 50 million and get Bale and whoever, Disco or someone, that at least because they're probably United guys, they haven't replaced the players they've sold for the last few seasons. Like Fellaini, yes, he wasn't like the star player, but he got important goals. He played most games off the bench or played. They didn't replace him. They didn't replace Lukaku. And I think that's problematic because even though they weren't, superstars, if you like, they were first team players.
I think you're right. If they sell him for 100 million and don't bring somebody in January, the fans will think, and I agree with you, they'll think the Glazers are just pocketing money again. But I don't think it's a bad deal. I mean, I don't understand what people say about it. I think Bale is a fantastic player. If you got Bale plus 50 million, happy days.
Yeah,
he's even at his age, he is quality, and you know that he'll get the right rest and recovery time, and will fit in well there. I mean, it'd be great, but they can't just get rid of him and not bring somebody in. They have to bring somebody in.
Yeah, they got to replace him. It's an interesting thing about Bale is the first thing people will throw you is his injury record. But if you actually look into it, his injury record, like I don't mean his stats, I mean when he's been available to play, his injury record isn't as bad as what people make it out to be. It's just that he's often, when he comes back from injury, Madrid don't play him for 2 months, and then so it looks like he's been out longer or more than he has been.
I think more so will be the wages. That could be the stumbling.
Now, but I mean, I think it'd be good for Daniel James to get Bale in, I got to say. I think that would be exceptional.
He has been apt. And when he was signed, right, in the summer, I had a lot of my mates, Man United mates, and they're going, 15 million, why are we only spending 15 million on a player? I said, look, this lad has got something. I see it well. I said, he will, the fans will love him there. And they absolutely adore him up there. And he's probably, after Maguire and De Gea, Rashford, he's probably the next name on the team sheet every time.
Yeah, and I think it only took one game, didn't it? The Chelsea game, first game of the season. And that they fell in love with him. He's so quick, and he's fast becoming Wales' most important player in a couple of years. Do
you know what? I actually think he's better on the left than he is on the right.
Yeah, I do too.
But they've got Rashford on the left. So it's like they've got, it's nice things to have, but it's great to see him doing so well as well. He's loved up there, and by all accounts, he's a very humble boy as well.
Yeah,
it's good.
100%. What they need, I think, lastly on United, I'll say, is what they need someone like Pogba who's going to do it regular. Because if they put the service into Rashford, Greenwood, James, Martial, they will score. And especially, particularly Greenwood, if they give him a run of games, but they've got to give him a run of games when you've got someone in midfield who's going to play the ball in behind for him to run onto, and because he's an exceptional finisher.
Yeah.
But they've got to get someone in who can do that. Whether it's, I know they've talked about Maddison, they've talked about Dybala and people like this. They've got to get someone who could play that number 10 position. And ironically, they've refused to play Pogba in that number 10 position for the whole time he's been there. They've tried to play him as a 2 in midfield, but play him if he does play for him again this year. You've got the 2 when Fred and McTominay who are playing well. Surely you'd play Pogba in that 10 role instead of Lingard, and then maybe you'll get the best out of him. I don't know.
Well, I think we
interesting.
The wait and see one, isn't it? To be honest.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Derek. So I'll put the links to your email and stuff in the bottom of the description. Obviously, people can follow you on Twitter and stuff like that. Thank you very much for your time, mate. I do really appreciate it. And guys and girls watching and listening, if you could give me a follow on social media, it's Twitter at ACEcast_nation or Facebook.com/ACEcastNation. Most importantly, subscribe to the YouTube channel, which is YouTube.com/ACEpodcastnation, as that's the best way to support us. And obviously, you can download the audio versions of all our shows at the usual podcasting apps, and get involved with the 10 days of ACEcast, which is where I'm producing and releasing 10 full-length podcasts in 10 days, which is no mean feat. It's a lot harder than what it sounds. And at certain points, I've regretted saying I was going to do it, shall we say. But it's going to happen. We're on, as we record this, has been day number 5, so we're halfway through. Get involved, drop some comments, drop some likes, shares, repeats, that sort of thing. Derek, thank you for joining me, mate. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Have a great Christmas, pal.
Top man, and you, buddy. Cheers, buddy. Bye.